I've listened to people speak passionately about stuff that I'm not really interested in, but they're so passionate about it that it brings me along on the ride with them. And that is really an essential human experience and something that is unlocked with video.
What's up, Elite Video Marketers? I am here with Aaron Watson, marketing extraordinaire, and my business partner at Piper Creative.
Good day.
I'm super excited that you're on the show and excited to be talking with you thanks to inhousevideographer.com. We'll learn about them later in the episode. Aaron, you have quite an impressive track record on the internet. I think I am familiar with that track record more intimately than most people, but you have a TikTok audience of almost 100,000 people, tens of millions of views across TikTok and YouTube. And last year, the Aaron Watson Business and Investing YouTube channel went from 1,200 subscribers to over 10,000 in just 1 year, which I want to dive into first because that is what a lot of people would consider hockey stick growth for YouTube. But we were very strategic about that growth at Piper. So if you could go back to the Aaron Watson of January 2021, when you had 1,200 subs, what would you tell that person?
You need to hyper focus on the few things that are high leverage. So what we learned and have continued to iterate on and are still not masters of are thumbnails and intros. We started the year not having intros. Then we had bad intros. And then by the end of the year, we had good intros, I guess. And the same basic arc with the thumbnails. And in hindsight, it took us way too long to go from none or bad to good. And it was because we'd get distracted and, squirrel, turned and just go after something that wasn't as impactful.
Yeah.
And it's so trite. And I remember when I was getting started in anything entrepreneurial, how often the folks who had accomplished a lot would talk about the value of focus. And I'd kind of roll my eyes. I'd kind of be like, well, that doesn't seem like the impactful thing. But in hindsight, that's what it was. We needed to hyper focus on first, what actually makes a YouTube channel grow? What helps it engage with more people? And then once we found out the two metrics, click-through rate and average view duration, we should have just been hyper focused on those things. We were focused on them, and that's what started to instigate some growth. But we could have been more zealous in that focus. And that would be the number one thing is just recognize the highest leverage points, hyper focus on those, and stop wasting time on all the stuff that isn't high leverage.
What were we focusing on before we zoned in on those two things?
I don't even, in hindsight, I don't even know. It was like every other silly little thing.
There was no focus. There
just wasn't enough of it. There was some focus. To get from 1 to 10 with the rate of production that we did, we were focusing. We were just not focused enough. And that is the number one thing that I can now see better because of the degree of focus that we've dialed up. And we have we're a 10 out of 100 on the Richter scale. We need to get to a 99. But now when I come into contact with someone who's a 1 out of 10 from a focus standpoint, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I now, I want the people who can see that with me. That's who I want to pay. That's who I want to hire. That's who I want to get involved with us because that's what's going to accelerate our growth more than anything else.
What specifically did you tell the team when you were trying to drive that focus to thumbnails specifically?
So I had to explain for a very long time that our thumbnails are the most important movie poster ever. It is the thing that someone sees and decides whether or not they're going to view your video. And what we later learned is that titles are equally important in that equation, but we didn't quite get that. We just still didn't have the basic imagery down. And we're still struggling with simplicity when it comes to the thumbnails that we design. Any creative really, but it's almost like this challenge for any video editor, graphic designer, anyone who's making something. Writers, in the same sense, they want to add the extra word. They want to add the extra flourish from an editing standpoint. They want to add the additional element as a graphic designer. And it's so hard to get comfortable in the simplicity. Because how do I convey my skill, my capacity, if I don't shovel more stuff in there? But the reality is that while there is a degree to which a great editor has a ton of cuts and a ton of moments and a ton of small decisions over the course of a video to make it high average view duration, high viewer retention, it doesn't necessarily mean doing the complex. And so the high quantity of disciplined, simple actions that drive someone to click on a video, which is actually being really comfortable with only putting 3 things on the thumbnail. Not 4, not 5, not 4.5, not 3.5, but just 3 things in that little space. A face, an idea, a word is more than enough if you pick the right 3 things. Requires more thinking time. It's less action. It's like, okay, can I move this? Can I push this? Can I push that all in there? It's more the capacity to think clearly about what you're trying to instigate someone to do.
And I think a lot of people, I know for my own YouTube homepage viewing experience, some of my favorite creators, if I see that they dropped a new video, it's instinctual. That's their face is the first thing I see when I click on the YouTube homepage, and I don't even take in anything else that I'm seeing. I just go right to that video and click. So how have you found that using your face versus other people's faces in the thumbnails has changed the click-through rate?
If I'm looking at things in a long-term perspective, it's the other faces of famous people that come on the podcast or that we might be talking about in a video is the highest leverage thing, because we're basically drafting off of their notoriety, their attention. You know, the one of the most recent Colin and Samir videos is talking with the manager of Mr. Beast. Not only is Colin and Samir's face not in the thumbnail, but the manager, who's relatively famous, Reed Drisher, is also not in the thumbnail. It's kind of blurred out. It's Mr. Beast's face. He's the most famous face. He's the one that someone at the margin is going to be most likely to recognize and decide to click. Then you get in the video, he's not there. They're talking about him, but he's not anywhere to be seen other than a few clips and cutaways. And it's Reed talking to Colin and Samir. That's a win for them. Most people can't get there in terms of like, well, they're not seeing me in the thumbnail. It's like, well, they're not seeing your video.
Right.
Do you want them to see your video, or do you want the ego boost of being in every thumbnail? I have worked and I've drawn that down and I hopefully don't have that ego. I just want what's best for the video. But that is one of the many steps that one has to take in their process to being an effective YouTube creator.
I cannot wait to dive in more, specifically talking about YouTube and hopefully talking about shorts a little bit as well. But I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor for the video, InhouseVideographer.com. If you want to be an effective elite video marketer, InhouseVideographer.com is the best place for that training. If you want to drive more sales, retain more clients, and build a magnetic video brand, InhouseVideographer.com is the place to learn how to do all of that. Back to Aaron. So we know that short form vertical video has served us very well on TikTok, clearly. And every brand, every creator is being driven to produce more vertical content. How are you working short form vertical video into your YouTube strategy?
The starting point is recognizing what the incentives are for these platforms. YouTube owned by Google, Instagram owned by Facebook, TikTok owned by ByteDance, and subservient to the Chinese Communist Party. All of them want more of your attention so they can sell more advertising and be more relevant as a platform globally. Facebook and Google recognize the enormous growth that TikTok has experienced and the enormous amount of consumption for short-form vertical videos, and very importantly, the algorithmic advantage that the full-screen vertical video of TikTok's format enables from a machine learning standpoint that the other platforms don't get from the conventional newsfeed. So they are putting an enormous onus, an enormous tailwind behind their respective short-form vertical video products. So very simply, if you're taking the time to produce a short-form vertical video for one of those platforms, hey, I'm big on Instagram, so I'm making Reels. I'm big on TikTok, so I'm making TikToks. If you're making the time to produce it, put it on all 3 of those platforms. Those are the 3 biggest media entities in the world, at least in the United States right now. So why not take advantage of all 3 of them as opposed to just 1 or 2? And from our standpoint, this is just breaking in the last week, I guess 2 weeks ago, based on when this episode will come out. YouTube Shorts now affects recommendations for long form videos. So the shorts consumption experience on your phone or on a desktop is this it's the only thing on screen, you scroll up and down regardless experience, which is very different than the tiles and the YouTube thumbnails that you're used to consuming in a YouTube desktop or mobile app environment. For the longest time, what the engineers at YouTube could not yet figure out is how to think about the relation between shorts consumption and long form YouTube video consumption and what would be recommended, what would influence the algorithm. They believe that they finally cracked that code. And so they've decided that if I've watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of your YouTube shorts, I am more likely to enjoy consuming one of your long form videos. That intuitively makes sense. And so if you are not showing up in my shorts feed and only a tile on the desktop environment, and YouTube is investing in getting more people to consume shorts so that they can steal attention away from TikTok and away from Instagram Reels, then you are making an error by not being in that format. So what that means for us is every single podcast that we put out already had the short form vertical video also produced that we're primarily distributing on TikTok and on Instagram. That is also going up as a YouTube short. We are not worried that that is going to detract from the full length viewership. In fact, it's more likely to get the full length video suggested. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the near future, there can be linking between YouTube shorts and explicit long form videos where they're already scrubbing all the text and scrubbing the images that are in one of these videos. Why wouldn't they see, hey, you watched 2 clips from this long form interview, you might like watching the full long form interview. That intuitively makes sense to me. I'm sure there's a build out that needs to occur, but that is how we're thinking as a baseline about not only creating more short form video, but making sure that we're utilizing it on every platform that matters.
So if you're talking to someone who is starting at like 0.0, they are not experienced in content creation, but they want to maybe produce a podcast or have some sort of web-based series. Is shorts the way to start to just like dip their toe in? Is short form vertical video the thing that they should do first before trial running like a whole series of podcasts?
Well, it's more accessible, right? So if you're producing a short form vertical video on your phone, you're using the editing suites that are contained within Instagram or TikTok or one of these other platforms that try to make it as easy as possible to actually produce something of quality. And there's amazing stuff that's literally created just within the TikTok editing suite. So your excuse cannot possibly be, hey, I don't have Adobe Premiere experience, so I can't make a great video. That's a great starting point. It's also the lowest barrier to entry, but that also means that that is a higher lift in terms of competition. There is going to be much more supply. There already is, but there's going to be even more supply of that short form vertical video. So you have to get comfortable with the fact that you're going to have to iterate a lot. If you make 3 short form vertical videos and they don't do well, and then you just give up and say that short form vertical video doesn't work, you are wrong. There's no other 2 ways about it. There is a 0% chance that you are correct in that assessment. It's actually just you are not good enough. And when your content is good enough, the algorithm desperately wants the next piece of viral content. If you have that top tier content, I've seen it happen. Channels can blow up overnight because they have cracked the code, the formula of what engages people, what interests people, what educates people. And that is what you have to be continually iterating towards. That's what we've been doing for years. That's the only reason stuff is starting to work for us now.
Right.
And we're going to continue to do it because in 5 years, I'd rather be the person with 10 years experience than the person with 5. And in 5 years, you're going to much rather be the person with 5 years experience than the person with 0.
Well put. So if you're a business with 0 experience with video, what is action step number 1 that you would suggest?
I mean, there's 2 paths that you can go down. If you have no content whatsoever, I wouldn't even necessarily worry about the regular content schedule yet because you just don't have the muscle build up. That's like saying, I'm going to start going to the gym 3 days a week when you've never gone to the gym before. Just get to the gym, learn how to do a bench press, learn how to do a squat, learn how to do some basic exercises. Then once you have the form down of the basic stuff, then you can start to build a practice around it. So I would recommend that most businesses that don't have some form of video strategy launch what we call your first 7 videos. And those resources are going to be built out on the Piper Creative website. But to give you a brief overview, there's about 7 videos that every company can use. That's like your 80-20 impact transformation from being a non-video marketer to a video marketer. An about us video, a brand video, a video that speaks specifically to the market that you serve and how you serve that person. video that is welcoming a new client or a new customer on board and getting them comfortable and reaffirming that they made the right choice by working with you. We have a package that we've developed with Piper that is centered on that idea that helps you make that transformation. And those would be the starting points of, do we have these and of what quality? Because you could shoot all of those on your phone, edit them in one of the TikTok or Instagram suites, and publish it everywhere. It's not going to blow the doors off anyone, but it's better than nothing. And one of the other misnomers is, well, it's shot on a phone camera and it's edited on some phone editing suite. It can't be quality. It's actually going to hurt my brand. It's absolutely not. If you can speak authentically about what your company stands for, or how you serve your clients, or what it's going to be like to now be a customer or client of yours, that is going to engender trust, even if it's low quality. I've taken courses, online courses, hundreds of dollars, that are literally shot with a webcam. So you have nothing to worry about on that front. The primary concern should be, are you only read by your prospective client, or are you also seen? Are you also heard? That's the transformation that video will enact. And then once you've done that, the next step can be, hey, I'm going to try to make one TikTok per week, one TikTok every work day. I'm going to try to produce 3 short form vertical videos per week and publish them on these 3 platforms that Aaron has told me matters.
What if you're a business owner that doesn't necessarily want to be the face of the brand?
You don't have to be the face. You can be the voice. You can get someone else to be the voice. Now, there's always a risk with that. If you're a small business owner, unless you're going to pay someone really well, they're probably not going to be a great job as a salesperson for you. So why would they be a good voice of your business? But there's also a ton of people that want to be creators full time that can basically be de facto agencies for you at a really low price point. So go find the person that is trying desperately to make a bunch of content, clearly not making a ton of money because they maybe have 1,500 followers on their Instagram account, but they make content with regularity and you think it doesn't suck, and hire them to part-time create content for you and your brand. That deal is sitting out there waiting to happen, assuming you're willing to shell out some dough. But if you're not willing to be the face or voice of your brand, then you're going to have to pay someone to do that.
Yeah, 100%. I personally, maybe it's like the internal bias of being the face or one of the faces of my own company and seeing actual sales being converted from our video content. But I think in this day and age, there has to be some sort of comfort level with speaking to a camera, with being the face of the brand, especially if it's just more personal, more impactful.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that if you aren't comfortable doing those 2 things, you can write a great script, record a screen recording, and hire a voice actor on Fiverr for $10 to be the voice of one of your videos. I don't think that that's required necessarily, but I think that you need to have video or you're missing out on a big opportunity. But I also know people that they only write, and their writing is so good that it literally generates millions of dollars worth of business.
Sure.
And so I'm not even sold that everyone has to do video marketing, but if your marketing's not working, it's one of the things that you should be exploring. Like there's people that literally, they just do SEO, they do pay-per-click, and they do millions of dollars worth of revenue. Yeah. I'm not so ignorant as to say like this way is the only way, but I am a believer in its efficacy when done right. And so maybe it's a strategy that you add on. Maybe it's something that you experiment with to try and break the door open to the next level of success. I've seen it happen. I'm confident that we as Piper can make it happen for other companies, but you do have to have some of those baseline things that you're comfortable with. And the beauty is that many of the B2B service providers that we talk to or the technologists that we serve with our business, they're so passionate about what they do that they love talking about it. And that's compelling to people.
Yeah.
I've listened to people speak passionately about stuff that I'm not really interested in, but they're so passionate about it that it brings me along on the ride with them. And that is really an essential human experience and something that is unlocked with video.
I totally agree. I think that's a beautiful note to end on. Thank you for being here, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.